I'm not a fan of most fast food chains, but there's something about Domino's Cheesy Bread that I've always loved. So today, in the Anabolic Laboratory, we will be making Domino's Cheesy Bread that has way more protein, less calories, and tastes nearly as good as the real thing. My name is Nick. I have my master's in exercise physiology, and I make anabolic recipes and do full days of eating and pretty much any other fitness content. So if you're into that kind of thing, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're ready for more cheese than last time, then let's get into it. This recipe has 3 parts: the dough, the cheese, and the oil. And of course, we're gonna start with the dough because it takes some time for that to rise. And this dough comes together super quickly. Now we're gonna either grab our bowl or our food processor. The food processor makes it easier, but you could definitely do it in a bowl as well. And we're gonna set it right on top of our scale. We're gonna start with 115 grams of good old AP regular ass flour. Next up is Vital Wheat Gluten. I've been using this a lot recently. I've used it in my 1-hour pizza and in my protein bun recipe. So you should already have it. If not, anything that I use is all in the link in the description below. It does help out the channel if you do use the link, but you can also get this stuff in certain stores as well. 30 grams, 2 grams of salt, 3 grams of instant yeast, 5 grams of any erythritol that you like. I choose pure cane just because it's cheaper. Swerve works just as good. And we have all of our dry ingredients in our food processor. I'm going to mix it up here for about 15 seconds just to get everything mixed. And if you have a bowl and you're doing it by hand, you could whisk it yourself really quickly as well, but I will see you back in a second. Have that mixed up, we're gonna add a couple of our wet ingredients. First of which being avocado oil. You can really use any kind of oil. This is the one that I just bought recently though. And then I have some imitation butter. If you don't have this, you don't absolutely need it, but I do think that it adds a little bit of flavor to it, but we're only using 1 gram here. I'm gonna put that on top of our Ninja, and then we're gonna get our water ready. We're gonna get 105 grams into this cup. Now this only takes about 20 to 30 seconds in the microwave to heat up. We want it anywhere between about 100 and 110 degrees. After I've heated it up, I like to check it with a food thermometer, and we are good to go. Now I'm gonna slowly pour this in while the blender is mixing. It usually only takes about 15 seconds to come together, but I let it run for the full 30 to keep letting it mix. And now we're going to knead it by hand. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to knead. I make sure I dump out any extra flour that's in there, and I use it just as we're kneading here, because if we're counting it as calories, we might as well use it all. Now this is super simple. I literally just go back and forth as I need. Usually I listen to some songs or a YouTube video, and then I'm done. So I will see you back as soon as this is done being kneaded. My dough ball is done here. I like to check it by cutting a little piece off, and then I do the window test. I see if I can get it nice and thin without any tearing, and I can see right through this thing. So it's ready to go. So what I'm gonna do is I like to round it into like a little ball. It almost looks like a bun. Beautiful. And we're gonna spray our bowl so it doesn't stick. And then I like to give it a little 1-2 on the top. And we're gonna cover it with cling wrap and put it in a warm spot in your kitchen for it to rise. We want it to double in size. While it's rising, you could do one of 3 things. Whatever the hell you want. Make your garlic oil, which we will make as the actual cheesy bread is being made. And you can also shred your cheese. However, you might already have pre-shredded cheese, and I feel bad for you because pre-shredded cheese sucks ass. Speaking of sucking ass, are you sick of pre-workouts that suck ass? If so, Gorilla Mode has top of the line pre-workouts to fit your every need. Use code E4CM at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Back to the cheese. Especially because they cover it with a bunch of bullshit and it doesn't melt the same way in the oven. So I highly suggest you shred your own cheese, and we're gonna use part skim mozzarella, which is about 80 calories per serving. And for the first time ever, I think on any anabolic or low calorie recipe, we will use regular old mild cheddar full fat cheese. We're only using a ½ ounce of it, not to worry, but we're gonna get these shredded, and then I will see you back once we have already rose. Luckily for me, I already had a dough rising in my microwave, and as you can see, it has doubled in size. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some cornmeal on here. Why cornmeal? Well, first of all, it's delicious. And second of all, this is actually what Domino's does. I tried and did my research. I looked on TikTok, I looked on videos here, and I found out that this is pretty much exactly how they do it, down to even the ounce. So I'm just gonna pour cornmeal all over this top side here and deflate this. And I'm not gonna count it because I counted the extra. I don't know, I probably did this 15 times, and we get about 12 to 14 grams of cornmeal that actually sticks to this at the end of the recipe. So I'm just gonna pour it right on the top, and then I'm gonna take it out and flip it over, and then I'm gonna pour it all over the other side as well. Now the goal is to get this into about a 9x8 rectangle, but if it's not perfect, it doesn't really matter. I like to do this by hand. You can use a rolling pin, but then you take a lot of the air pockets out, and it's not as bread sticky as cheesy bread from Domino's usually is than if you just do it by hand, which is super easy because when you take it out, it's already about 6 to 7 inches long and 5 to 6 inches wide. All right, that only took about 90 seconds, and now we are ready to fill this bad boy and top this bad boy. So we're gonna start out by putting the insides in first. We're gonna weigh out 42 grams of our part skim shredded cheese. And since they don't have a brick of fat-free, I have to get a pre-shredded fat-free cheese. I'm gonna use 42 grams of this as well. At this point, I like to give the cheeses a good mix together so they melt, and they also are throughout the whole cheesy bread in the same consistency and the same flavor. And we're gonna put this almost edge to edge on one side of the actual cheesy bread. And if it looks like a lot of cheese, it's because it is. But that's the whole point of cheesy bread, and I absolutely love cheese. Now we're gonna close this thing, and we're just gonna seal it. I just like to press the edges together once around, and then I will come back and kind of fold it over itself like a calzone. At this point, we're gonna take some parchment paper, and we're only gonna rip off about 6 inches. We only need it as wide as the actual cheesy bread itself. So we're going to take our cheesy bread and put it right on the parchment paper and see how much extra cornmeal there is. That's why I didn't actually count it when I first put it on here. But what we're gonna do now is we're going to slice this beforehand. Domino's actually pre-slices the cheesy bread, and we're gonna get it into 8 pieces. So I'm gonna go down the middle, and then I'm gonna divide those 2 into 2, and then I'm gonna divide all the rest into another 2. We've got it all into pieces, and we're gonna push them together, and then we're gonna top our cheesy bread, and we are about ready to eat. On this plate, I'm gonna separate the fat-free cheeses from the full-fat cheeses. And first, I'm gonna weigh out 14 grams of a fat-free cheddar, and then 14 grams of a fat-free mozzarella. I'll mix these ones together really quick, and then we're gonna do the same thing for our full-fat and part skim cheeses, 14 grams each. Then I'll give those a good mix. Now we're gonna put on our fat-free cheeses first because they don't melt the same way, both because they're fat-free and because they're pre-shredded. And right on top of that, we will add our regular fat cheeses. For the last 30 minutes or so, I've had my oven preheating to 500 degrees, and now the cheesy bread is ready to go in. I do have a pizza steel. It's been taking about 12 to 14 minutes with a pizza steel, but you could also put it straight into like a sheet tray pan and put it right into the oven. It might take a couple minutes longer, but just keep your eyes on it. It's probably gonna be anywhere between 12 and 16 minutes to get to your final product. And since this is parchment paper, I could slide this right onto the pizza steel with no problem, and we will take it off as soon as it's done. While this is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and make a homemade garlic oil butter spread for the top of this. If you want, you can do this yourself separately, but I'm just gonna make so whenever I make something that I wanna put this on, I can literally just shake this up and add it. I'm going to start with 100 grams of avocado oil, but any oil will work that you like. If you don't like olive oil taste, then don't use olive oil, but pretty much any oil is gonna work here. Then we're gonna use 3 grams of our imitation butter that we used earlier, 2 grams of salt, 4 grams of garlic, and 5 grams of Parmesan. I'm gonna give this a good mix here, and then I'm gonna use a funnel, and I'm gonna add it to my bottle, which I already had the same oil in. They do have parsley in their blend, but it usually gets caught in here, and unless you have an immersion blender to mix everything up, you can't really do it because you'll be squeezing the bottle. The parsley gets stuck in the top of the cap here. It's kind of shitty. So I like to do it at the very end, and I'll show you that once this is done. Our cheesy bread is done. Let's see what it looks like fresh out of the oven. I mean, if I walked into a room, I would think that this is Domino's Cheesy Bread. I mean, come on. Now I wanna get it onto this wire rack here. Let's look at the bottom. Beautiful, perfectly browned. I mean, look at the full fat cheese melted perfectly, browned perfectly on top, cornmeal everywhere. It's going to taste absolutely delicious. You really gotta shake this oil up so you get parm and garlic and all the stuff that we mixed in here, and not just getting straight oil. I did this a bunch of times freehand. I got about 5 to 6 grams every time I put it on here. So I would say put on about 5 grams of this oil. Last thing we gotta do is take a pinch of this parsley. It's already dried. All you gotta do is like squeeze it between your thumb and your finger, and it breaks up so easily, and just spread it throughout. And that's all you really need from the parsley flakes. This is still too hot to do a pull apart, so let's go over the macros. I said in my full day of eating on Turkesterone that this would not be a low calorie recipe. I have to use a certain amount of dough, I have to use a certain amount of cheese, and I still want the flavor to be there without taking away from the literal flavor. If I take and put all fat-free cheese, it's going to be vastly different than the ratios that I used. That being said, the total calories for my cheesy bread is 989 with 29 fat, 109 carb, and 77 protein. Most people would be able to eat half of this and be satisfied. Every night, me and my girlfriend ate this. Every night, I ate a full one. I have the calories to do so. She ate half of one and was full. In comparison to the Domino's Cheesy Bread, we are looking at 1,120 calories, 48 fat, 128 carb, and 48 protein. So it's only 150 less calories for mine, but on top of that, you get about 30 grams more protein and way less fat. Not to mention, you know every single thing that is in this. It was made from scratch, and you don't have to do this every single time you make this. You can make 3, 4, 5 doughs at a time, leave them in the fridge, use the one that you're gonna do for that night, and the cheese that you already shredded for the first one will be there for the rest of the week as well. So it only really takes one time of doing this to be able to have this every single night, and it will take you 10 to 15 minutes to actually do all of the other nights. I'm probably gonna burn myself, but it's time for a cheese pull. I mean, I don't think I have to say very much. I think that you should go to the store, get whatever you need to make this, go home and make this for dinner tonight. It's worth it. It's worth every second. I made it almost every single day for the past 2 to 3 weeks, and it has been absolutely tremendous every single time. I am not sick of it. I would like to keep eating it. Unfortunately, I have to move on to the next recipe, so I can't be making this and making that at the same time. However, if you're out there and you want cheesy bread on the daily and you want to fit it into your macros, you can do it with this recipe, especially if you're main gaining or on a bulk right now, since it is the winter time. If you would like to support the channel, use any of the links in the pinned comment below. You know I'm going to have hella more fire ass recipes coming out in the very near future. And until next time, I will see you in that next one. Deuces.